Hello, welcome to Aapki Khabar. And today we are going to discuss about the HR. And as the viewers could see, our guest panelist today, Manju Gurnani, and she is the in the field of HR. And our moderator, Meetu Dantare, she is the member of Wiki UP HR Council. And today we will discuss here. As the viewers know, Aapki Khabar and Wiki UP HR Council brings the stories regarding HR. And today we are going to introduce Manju Gurnani, and over to you, Mituji. Please go ahead.
Very good evening to all our viewers. Thank you, Rajiv ji. I welcome Manju today. Hi, Manju. A very warm
Hello.
welcome and thank you so much for taking this invitation from us of being one of the guest speakers. So, introducing and giving a little brief about our speaker today, Miss Manju Gurnani is 15 plus years of experience in HR, and she's been primarily working into IT and ITES industries. She has been into leadership roles also and has a good firm background of working in different HR functions, basically focusing on talent acquisition, training and development, and currently into the leadership role where she takes care of the strategizing and amalgamation of HR and strategy in the organization. So, today's topic for the discussion that we've chosen is strategy and role of HR. And not taking long, Manju, I would like you to take the stage and let us know what strategy and HR separately means and how have they amalgamated during the pandemic and post-pandemic times specifically.
Thank you, Meetu. Thanks for introducing such a vulnerable introduction about me. And I would not take much time and get started with the topic. So before we, actually get into how it impacted, the post-pandemic or pandemic, we should understand what does the meaning of strategy and what is the role of HR. So today I'm going to discuss on the broad prospects from the top how HR come into picture and how the business works, wherein eventually they get amalgamated, and how what is the importance of HR in an organization. So there are different sets of, for example, there are many different type of organization, mid-level, uh, you know higher level and the lower level. So the roles of HR differs in every organization, every type of organization. And that's how we see that when we join the organization, we have to look at the cultural fitment, and how we can spontaneously behave accordingly. That is a very important part for an HR in any organization. So not taking much time, I'll just get started. Before I get started, I would like to, though many of us know what is the meaning of strategy, but still I would like to emphasize a little bit more, educating you all about the strategy first. So the strategy actually is a word which was originated from army, which means to defeat enemies. And in organization, it's like a plan which was created to defeat enemies. So similarly, in an organization, we create short term and the long term plans to achieve specific goals, and which involves allocating organizational resources like operations, HR, IT capabilities to attain desired outcomes. And the purpose of allocating is to compete in the market and create value for stakeholders. So that's how we are actually doing the competing competition in the market for our sustainability. So pre-pandemic, if you look at, companies were actually quite agile, working towards operations, HR, IT capabilities. But post-pandemic, the digital transformation came into a lot of picture, wherein everything was digitalized, or worked towards the IT capabilities more, to make the organization more agile, as we all were working from home. Not taking much time, as we go towards strategy, if we look at A good strategy basically involves the external environment. So external environment was the post pandemic, and now we can see the war situations in Ukraine and Russia. So these are the external markets which are keep on changing, and we do not have a control over it. So
Right.
and also, so we also have an internal capabilities and strengths in the organization. So it is very important that our internal capabilities and strengths should be aligned with the external environment as well. So we need to be agile in order to make those capabilities efficient with the time. So based on the analysis and the strategy, may involve setting goals, prioritizing initiatives, and make trade-off to optimize resources. For example, in the pandemic time, we all went virtual. It was not at all expected. A lot of companies were not prepared for it. And the
Yes.
moment we went virtual, we created lot of things came into picture. Teams played an important role, in which we had from Microsoft, and everyone was managing to connect through Teams. We also had a lot of sentiment surveys, understanding the emotions of the employees in the organization. So the strategies changed. We started looking at how the employees are feeling once the pandemic took place, and how what needs to be done in order to resolve that. Mental health apps came into picture, which was not into picture pre-pandemic, and it became an important factor when the pandemic come, that how important it is to work on the mental health of the employees.
Right.
And many of the apps came into picture, and now there are a lot of organizations which are building up towards mental health programs. So these are the changes which has taken place a little bit in the pandemic time. And post pandemic, we can see the complete shift, that the IT capabilities in the organization has become more stronger. Earlier, a lot of things for HR also was done on the manual side, but now we can see everything is automated, and things are more readily available, more agile for the HR also to do better analysis about the environment, internal and external environment in the organization. So
Yeah.
little bit about strategy, as I explained you, that it's a plan towards a specific goal, and it can be short term, it can be long term. It is based on the external and the internal factors. And but then I would also like to bring into picture how it works in the different level of companies. Like for example, we have different company portfolios. For example, there's a holding company. To explain you better, first let me just explain you how does the what does holding company means. It
I
is a
was
type
about
of,
to ask. Yeah. You need to explain what is a holding company first. Yeah.
yes, that's what I said. So I'm explaining the holding company to make you understand it better. So it's a type of business organization that owns the majority of the outstanding shares of one or more companies, which is known as subsidiaries.
Yeah.
The primary focus of holding companies is to control the subsidiary companies by owning their stocks,
Shareholders.
and
Yeah.
leaving their operations and managements largely independent. So that's how it works. So in holding company typically does not engage in any business operation of its own, but rather act as a vehicle for owning and managing the assets and its subsidiaries. So these subsidiaries may operate in diverse industries and geographies, locations, and holding company can use it ownership to exercise control over their strategic directions and the management. Also,
Right.
one of the advantage of holding company structure is that it allows the greater flexibility in managing, organizing assets, and as well as providing a way to limit risk exposure. In addition, it can offer tax advantage, as some countries have favorable tax treatments for holding companies. However, it is important to note that the use of holding company can also have legal and regulatory implication, and it may not be suitable for all business or situations. So um, all I can say is something, the holding companies wherein they are having a majority of shares, and the management in the business is independent. Now, before I explain that how it works in the company, I would like to highlight the other portfolios of the company. Like unrelated diversification, related diversification, and single business unit. So once we understood what is the meaning of holding company, I would like to explain you the unrelated diversification business strategy. So the unrelated diversification business strategy, in which a company expands to operate into that are unrelated to the existing business activities. This type of diversification involves entering new markets or industries that can little or no connection to the company's current products or services. For example, if I talk about Reliance, Reliance was into petroleum and oil. And when in 2008 there was a recession which came into picture. 2008 to 2012 was a phase when there was a lot of recession, and that's how the organization realized that we cannot sustain ourselves in one business. It is very important that we diversified our business into different streamlines so that we can meet up with the external changes in which happens, which are beyond our control. So that's how the, if you look, Geo came in, picture into 2010 12. It creates a boom in the market, and we were getting Geo chips free of cost at that time. So Reliance Geo was one more diversified organization which came into picture. Now we have GeoMart. Now we have a lot of things in Reliance, which are now Reliance is going towards media. It is going towards retail. So they are diversified now into different sectors which are unrelated. It is not related to oil or petroleum. It is, Geo is not related to retail. Geo is not related to media. Geo, then it comes to retail, is not related to Geo. So these are the unrelated sectors diversification which was created by Reliance, so that we are into many businesses and we can make maximum out of it, even if the external environment are not not taking place for one business. It can take place for the other businesses. That's how.
Basically, yeah. So basically, what you're trying to say is that when we talk about strategy, that primarily focuses on how the company is to sustain, किस तरीके से कोई भी external factor, चाहे वो pandemic हो, चाहे वो recession हो, or else there can be a time जब आपके पास oil fields में इतना product ना हो जितना आपके expectation हो. So strategy basically focus करता है how does the company continues to grow एंड परफॉर्म irrespective कि एक प्रोडक्ट अगर काम नहीं करेगा, so we have different other options from where we
Correct.
can at least sustain the company, and it cannot just be a flat fall for the organization कि जैसे कई organizations होती हैं जो कि they just vanish from the map of the whole industrial unit sector just because they did not have a backup plan. So strategy को बोल सकते हैं it is a kind of backup plan for the layman to understand.
Absolutely, absolutely. Meetu, you're absolutely correct in saying that. So, it's a way. So, similarly, related diversification होता है. Related diversification होता है जिसमें आप similar products के अंदर different different businesses create कर रहे हो. Like
Right.
Google है. Google ने पहले Google came into technology, then they get into emails, then they got into drives, creating drives, then they got, so these are the related businesses which they have got into. These are interrelated and they are doing really well. If you talk about TCS also have a lot of related you know related
They did
industries like
make more
automobile,
products.
telecommunication. So
Yeah.
Tata is into telecommunication also, Tata is into automobile also. So these are similar, so they are into, if you look at the best example of one of the company which is into holding diversification and unrelated diversification are, this is Berkshire Hathaway. It's into insurance company. It's headed by Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, we all know that it's a very big name in the US, and it's a US based company. And they started out textile manufacturing company, but eventually diversified into various industries like insurance, energy, retail, transportation. So that's how, even GE, if you look at, it was founded in electrical engineering company, and then it moved into diverse industries like finance, aviation, healthcare. So these are unrelated diversification. If I talk about similar companies for related diversification, Berkshire was into, Duracell, Dairy Queen, GICO. If I talk about G, it got into the industry which is diversified towards aviation, healthcare, and finance. So there are few companies which are into diversified business as well and unrelated diversification also.
I would
So
just like to interrupt here and give a very simplistic example. जैसे हम अमूल की बात करते हैं, so initially we started with the milk revolution and then we only had milk as a product for Amul. पर आज की डेट में अगर आप देखेंगे तो Amul has gotten into related and what should I say, into the in-field diversification where they have ice creams also, they have
correct. These are
paneer,
like related diversifications.
so
Yes,
this
sorry.
is an example. Amul is an example कि आपका जो मूल प्रोडक्ट था वो सेम रहा, बट द वैरायटी ऑफ अवेलेबिलिटी आउट प्रोडक्ट जो है वो उन्होंने इंक्रीज किया. And when you
Correct.
are talking about unrelated diversification, so none other than Reliance, where they started from a petroleum company. Jamnagar was the setup. Later on, they got into Reliance Trends, that is for clothing. Then they went into Reliance Fresh, that was for organic food produce, and so on and so forth.
So this is about holding. So, but then Reliance is a holding company. So what we look is something a degree of shift. So, for example, Reliance is a holding company. So, if I want to rate between 1 to 10 where Reliance stand, it is going towards diversification and unrelated diversification once that recession came in. After that, that shift happened from a holding company towards diversified and unrelated diversification companies. So it happened at that phase, and now it is tilting towards, if I rate 1 to 10, now it is at 7 or 8 place wherein they are into diversification. So still it's a holding company, but it is towards going towards unrelated diversification. So if you talk about Amul example, so it would have started from milk, which is a holding company, and then it shifted towards unrelated, sorry, diversified diversification, related diversification. So if I need to rate from 1 to 10, it is at 8. So there are a lot of companies which are still holding, but they are moving towards diversified and unrelated diversification. That's how it is. And the fourth thing is something a single unit, single business unit business. A single business unit is a term used to describe a self-contained entity within an entire organization that operates independently and is responsible for a specific product or service line. It is often used in the context of strategic management and organizational structure. So, if I talk about the companies which are into single business unit, you can talk about Coca Cola. Coca Cola was same at that
Definitely.
time also, and today also the product is same, and they have excellent marketing skills which actually creates a maximum distribution in the world, and still it is running really well. Even if we talk about Apple iPhone division, if you talk about, it's doing really well because they have a USP. Basically, they are known for their differentiators. So Coca Cola is a drink which is a differentiator. No company can compete that drink. Same as Apple iPhone. We say that अगर एक बार Apple iPhone use कर लिया तो फिर कोई और phone समझ नहीं आता, because it's a differentiated. They have created differentiation strategy in the market, wherein no companies come and go, but they do not manage to create that benchmark. So even if you talk about Tesla pehle was into energy, but now it is towards getting towards automation. But still, it is not completely into diversification. So still, it comes to a more towards the holding, single business unit.
Because their
Similarly,
main product is energy. That
yeah,
is what they emphasized on.
yes, and
So,
even if
sorry, please continue.
so, if you talk about Nestle is again a single business unit. Nike again a single business unit. So these are solely, producing their own products, and those products are, they have a differentiator strategy. wherein because of their differentiation than other products in the market, they are competing well in the market and managing to sustain.
So here I understood a lot about strategy, what basically strategy means, and we have differentiated the organizations also into three different verticals, where there is one holding company, the other is internal and broad range diversification of product, and there is a single business unit. So how does HR differentiates in functionalities in all these three types of organizations, way of
See,
work?
HR, correct. So once we get into the company as an HR, first we should understand, it is very important from the top that what kind of company you are into. You are into a diversified company, you are into a unrelated diversification, you are into holding company, you are into a single business unit. So you will understand that how the HR work from the top. So if you talk about a single business unit, there might be a lot of HRs, but there will be a one single HR at the top who will be reporting to the top management. So the
Right.
control will be in one hand. When it comes to diversification and unrelated diversification, HR would be decentralized. And in a single business unit, the HR will be centralized. That will be a difference. And in holding company, it depends whether the holding company is toward getting towards unrelated diversification. Then there will be a lot of centralization of HR. But at the end, it's a holding company, so there will be some centralization at the top for the HR. So that's how it works. Though it also depends on the mindset of the company CEO, how they want to create an organization structure. But what I'm talking is a general observation about these, company portfolios, that how the HRs are placed in these organizations.
So when it comes to placing of the organization, obviously, if a company would have different diversifications, they would have unit heads and HR heads for different diversified businesses of theirs. लेकिन जब इनमें strategizing की बात आती है, so does a strategy change based on the kind of unit a person is heading, or is just
Correct.
all about the culture of the company?
No. So for example, आप Reliance को ही ले लेते हैं. So if I talk about Reliance, and they are into Reliance Geo, so the HR would be different and the strategy will be based on Reliance Geo. So if I talk about petrol or oil, so the HR would be entirely different, decentralized, and then strategy would be the towards how business strategy is like oil and petrol. Then how the culture of the organization would be. So I'll be coming down that how. So I'll be explaining you how step by step the HR plays a role in defining the culture of these organizations, how it works. So here I'm just explaining you that these are the different company portfolio and how does the HR get placed at the top. Now next what I'm going to talk is something, first, how the external environment needs to be analyzed by an HR so that they understand that how the strategy works for the business, and what are the competitive advantage of the organization. Also, uh, there are different approaches. Like for example, when you join an organization, there are few organizations which have regimented approach, and there are few organizations which have dynamic approach. There are few organizations which believe in inside out. So I'll explain you how it works. So let me just go with first the external environment strategy. So what the questions, Meetu, which you had, that how the HR will make the strategy, that will come with the time once you get an understanding on these aspects on external environment, competitive advantage, and the approach the organization have towards the external and internal environment.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay, fair. So, when you talk about external environment scanning, it's a process of involving gathering, analyzing external factors. Now, that could potentially impact an organization strategy. So, it helps organization understand their industry and competitive advantage. Now, we basically in this we need to identify the relevant external factors. The first step would be to identify the factors that could impact the organizational strategy. That is political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. So all these things will come into picture. We need to gather those information and then do a research and reports, which includes the research and the reports which we get from the market, publications, news articles, government reports, social media. So these data are available through which you can do the scanning, analyze the information. So analyze the pattern, the trends, the impact in the organization by SWOT analysis. So we know strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So at the pandemic time, we would have used this SWOT, wherein we understand our internal strengths and weaknesses we have, and what are the opportunities and threats we have externally. So that we would have definitely done. So once those analysis is done based on the external factors of political, technological, legal, and environmental, we prioritize, what is important, external factor which can impact the organization. So in pandemic time, COVID was the one which was a critical factor, and we made strategies that how we have to balance it out during this phase. And based on that, we develop strategies and then monitor and adjust with the time, that what new things we need to keep on changing to meet that requirement. So this is one way of scanning the external environment. The second thing which I would like to talk about is the competitive advantage. Now, when I talk about competitive advantage means a unique advantage or qualities that allow a business to outperform its competitors.
Right.
So, it is basically an ability of the company to produce goods or services more efficiently and effectively than its competitors. So, at the end, we are creating strategy to compete in the market, and competitive advantage plays a very important role because it enables the company to create more value for its customers and generate higher profits. So
Yeah.
competitive advantage can be derived from variety of sources such as proprietary, technological, intellectual property, brand recognition, economies of scale, superior customer service, unique distribution. So if I talk about Reliance, the competitive advantage, I would say a disruptive Reliance Geo. So they actually disrupted the market by giving free chips of Geo SIMs, and everyone purchased it. So that was a disruptive pricing strategy which they bought in. So that was a competitive advantage of an organization. Everyone
Yes.
would go and purchase at least one SIM because it's free of cost. Then they
Right.
created a strong network infrastructure. So if you go to Leh Ladakh and you try to operate Airtel or Vodafone, it will not work. But if you use
Yes, yes.
Reliance Geo, it will work. So that's how they created a strong infrastructure, network infrastructure. Also, diversified portfolio, wherein they get into a lot of sectors, petrophils, retail, e-commerce, apart from geo sims. And then innovative products and services. So they created geo fiber is now coming, and now we geo meet, they are coming, which is like a video chat. So apart from geophone, they are getting into new products and services. Then the focus was on to, now they are coming with the focus of digital transformation. So this is again one of the competitive advantage of Reliance Jio. Similarly, if I talk about competitive advantage of Microsoft, so Satya Nadella has created really a nice culture in the organization. And if I talk about the Microsoft competitive advantage, so um, dominant market share, it's a strong brand. We all know Microsoft, and they have a broad product portfolio, because of which maximum people use, like we use Teams, we use Azure, we use LinkedIn. So they have created Windows, Office, so everywhere we need Microsoft. So it's like a broad product portfolio which they have created, and large developer communities. So they have created lot of communities to create applications and tools for its platform. So this is like a strong competitive advantage of the organization, which is helping them to enable to compete their competitors and grow in the market. not only sustain but grow. Strong financial position they have. So these are the few competitive advantage which I discussed to make you understand that competitive advantage is an unique advantages which which a business have, uh, and they have because they manage to outperform its competitors and grow in the market and earn profits. So apart from sustainability, it is very important that the organization should grow as well. So competitive advantage plays an important role in any organization.
True. So now coming again back to the same question, strategizing from the perspective of an organization definitely depends on what you just said, that they have to have a competitive niche, they have to have a sustainable infrastructure, and they have to have a set vision and goals that they need to achieve that makes progression in the organization. But from the perspective of an HR, looking at those broader visions and goals of a company, the main customer for an HR in an organization is their people strength, right? The kind of people they bring in
Neetu, I
from.
would like to bring into picture that it's just not internal factor. What I'm trying to tell that HR should know all these things, and I'll
Right,
come with the reason why. So I understand that right now I'm just explaining what exactly HR should know. Then I'll come to why reason that why they should know, and then I'll come to know, let you know that how they should know. So it's like, if I talk about what part, there is one more information which I would like to share is something, the strategic influence in the organization. So there are few organizations which have regimented approach, and there are few organizations which have dynamic approach. So if I look at a horizontal line, and at a left hand side if I consider a regimented approach, and on the right hand side we look at the dynamic approach. Okay, it is very important that an organization should be more dynamic, but again you have to see which level of organization you are into. If
right,
it is a regimented approach, then the inside out, that means in many organization, as you said that we HR, as an HR, it is important for us to work on the people internally, and we cannot we have, that is our major, but that's not the truth. The truth is that we need to work, we should have external partnership as well. So the organizations which have internal external approach towards HR, like they also make them part of the business strategies which they make, then it's an inside outside approach an organization have towards HR. And it is very important to have that, because they will understand what kind of resources the organization require, what kind of business lines are coming in the organization, what kind of customers are getting connected with the organization, what will be our recruitment strategy, what will be our training strategy to upscale the skills to meet the future requirement. So
right.
what kind of company we are into plays a very important role. Nowadays I can see many of the company are moving from regimented approach to dynamic approach, creating a dynamic ecosystem so that the HR can have HR plays a very important role in an inside outside relationship. So
Yeah, this is the keyword I say, that inside outside relationship is also the primary factor that guides through for the HR, that how they have to bring about the changes and how they have to collaborate with the other management verticals to get a better result.
correct. So similarly, competitive advantage. So once they understand that these are the competitive advantages of the organization. For example, pricing is the competitive advantage. For
Correct.
example, innovation is the competitive advantage of the organization. For example, distribution is the competitive. So the next question an HR should do from the top heads: what kind of culture you want to draw in the organization? So that's where the role of important HR. So I was explaining you since long holding company, related diversification, unrelated diversification, single business unit. Then I explained you competitive advantage. Then I explained you external and internal market, inside out relationship with of HR. Why I was explaining you, so that you can know the culture of the organization, and that's where you should start sensing that what is the culture. For example, if pricing is at the top, so there is a possibility that they want to drive a culture of cost effectiveness, or if there is a cost effectiveness, that they would like to have a lot of automations in the company, so that there is a reduction on the costs, and the cost effectiveness in the organization, the processes and things are streamlined. For example, if a organization have a culture of innovation, so they would like to have build a culture of risk taking capabilities. Like for example, if I talk about Microsoft.
Google also is a very good example.
Yes. So Microsoft, Google, these are the companies. So if I talk about Microsoft, for example, they have a culture of growth mindset, collaboration, innovation, customer focus, high performance culture. So they would like to have risk taking capabilities in the organization. So again, it while defining the organization's culture, it is very important. Apart from competitive advantage, a organization should look what are the organization capabilities a company have, and for that you should check it out. Viro is a framework which is known as V means valuable. So these are the organization capabilities. So what are the organization capabilities which are valuable in the organization? What are rare in the organization? What are inimitable means there is no other organization which can get that. So organized, how many of them are organized? So this is very important for an HR to understand that how does the organization capabilities work. So if I talk about Microsoft, so Microsoft is known for innovative products. So that
Right.
is their valuable capability which they have. Like they are into operating systems, they are into Microsoft Office, they are into Azure cloud platforms. So if I talk about rarity, what is the rarity organization capabilities which the Microsoft
That we
have?
cater to, yeah.
Brand reputation. You cannot beat the brand. If you say you're working on Microsoft, you people will feel it's absolutely fine.
तो वही
So
वही होता है कि नाम के साथ जब कनेक्ट हो गया, सो ऑटोमेटिकली सर्टेन थिंग्स कम टू एन इंडिविजुअल्स माइंड एंड
correct.
दैट
So हर एक
बिकम्स द
कंपनी
ब्रांड
का
फॉर द कंपनी.
Yes, so हर एक कंपनी का अपना ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कैपेबिलिटी होगा. लाइक इफ आई टॉक अबाउट माइक्रोसॉफ्ट का immutability, what is that which cannot come into which other companies cannot afford, or even if they spend they will not manage to work on that, is something they do large investment on research and development.
राइट.
जी
So
यस
and as well
अजीत.
as
ये
intellectual property
जी
protection strategies. Sorry, Rajiv ji, you were saying something.
I was saying
ओके.
actually time is over now, and very good example you have given, and we can include in the example like Fuji, Kodak and Fuji. They have not the strategy was not clear of that
Correct.
companies, so they are out now. So
Yeah.
a lot of
So,
examples here, but
correct.
limitation of the time due to limitation of the time. So
Rajiv,
Meetu
I'll
ji,
just take
please
two
conclude.
minutes and close this. It's
Okay,
something
okay, okay. Sure.
once the culture is defined, like I said, that once we understand the competitive advantage and we understand the organization capability and the culture is defined, then the behaviors of this based on the culture, the HR has to define the behaviors of the employees in the organization, which is connected with the performance matrix. So this is why we should be aware from the top how the strategies are working and how this culture has been derived. And once this culture has been derived, what are the expected behaviors we expect from the employees in the organization? And what kind of KRAs and KPIs needs to be designed to make sure those behaviors are being performed. So in Microsoft, there is a risk-taking capability, which is one of the behavior which people get to know. They have a growth mindset. They can fail and again redo things. They have a collaborative attitude. So collaboration is always important. They have innovation teams, cross-functional teams, wherein they come up with the innovation ideas. So these are the cultures which are being drawn, and these are linked with the performance appraisal of the employees as part of their KRAs and KPIs. So,
Okay.
with this note, I'll end it to give you a little bit more. There are a lot of frameworks as well, like OKI model, design thinking, to draw the culture of the organization, and those are linked again with the performance matrix of the employees, so that that culture is being derived from top and goes down to the employees, and that's how the organization at the broader level work towards the cultural part.
It's
Okay.
really a very interesting and undoubtedly a very vast topic to cover in 30 minutes of a time slot, but very well done, Manju. Thank you so much. So, primarily, what we can capsulate it to is that strategy in HR is also a top down approach where the company's HR has to focus on both the internal and external factors of the organization in alignment to the vision and goals of the company so that they can better understand what kind of people to recruit, what kind of culture to build, and what kind of behavioral markers are needed so that the company can perform with the help of their human resource and achieve the goals in terms of what financial turnovers should be, what should be the brand impression of the organization into the market, and how they can turn themselves into the one of the best amongst the competitors. Am I stating it right?
Thank you so much for concluding it, and I hope it made sense to you, understanding that how it is working from top down.
Sure,
And
actually, I think, Manju, we need another session to continue and talk more elaborately on each thing because ये एक ऐसा टॉपिक है जिसको कि HR strategizing has been talked about for at least a decade or decade then more than decade, but उसका implementation bang on started I think only 5 years back, and COVID helped in catalyzing the whole process a little more. So strategizing HR is the primary thing that we needs to focus, and obviously other than that is the data analysis, the talk of the town as per today's trends. So thank you so much for your time today, Manju, and would definitely like to call you upon our platform once more so that इसके बारे में थोड़ा और elaborative तरीके से बात हो. And I hope our viewers must have gotten a very good understanding of what strategy is all about and how does HR comes into play when it comes to strategizing for the organization and bring in people on board so that the company and HR can collaboratively work on the performance and bring it to good results. So thank you so much, Manju. I'll hand over
thank
the platform to Rajiv ji now.
Um, Thank you. Really, this session was very interesting, and more than 12 minutes we had talked about the strategies, and our time was only for the 30 minutes. लेकिन ये सेशन इतना इम्पोर्टेंट था, और मैं व्यूवर्स को ये बोलना चाहूंगा कि इसमें जो स्ट्रैटेजी होती है किसी भी कंपनी की, वो बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट होती है. मैंने इसीलिए दो एग्जाम्पल दिए थे. जैसे मंजू जी ने जो एग्जाम्पल दिया जियो का, कि किस तरीके से फ्री में सिम डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करके आज वो सबसे बड़ा नेटवर्क प्रोवाइडर बन रहा है, और जहां कहीं भी नेटवर्क के इश्यू होते हैं वहां भी जियो के नेटवर्क बहुत ही अच्छे होते हैं. मैंने पर्सनली इस चीज को एक्सपीरियंस किया है. यही होती है स्ट्रैटेजी. उसने बहुत पहले इस चीज को पहचान लिया था. मैंने एग्जांपल दिया था कोडैक का और फूजी का. एक टाइम याद होगा व्यूवर्स को कि हम फोटो क्लिक करते थे, उसको प्रोसेस करवाते थे, वो सारी चीजें होती थी. लेकिन वो जब मार्केट आउट हुई उस समय स्ट्रैटेजी नहीं बनाई गई उन कंपनियों के द्वारा, और आज वह नहीं है कहीं भी मार्केट में. तो किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए स्ट्रैटेजी बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट होती है। रिस्क, जैसे माइक्रोसॉफ्ट के बारे में मंजू जी ने बताया कि रिस्क लेने की जो कैपेसिटी है वो काफी अच्छी, उसने रिस्क लिया और आज वह रूल कर रहा है। तो इस तरीके से जो भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है या जो भी व्यूअर्स हमें सुन रहे हो, छोटे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हो, बड़े ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हो, एमएसएमई हो, स्टार्टअप हो, कुछ भी हो, वो सारे R&D बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर। ये भी बताया गया R&D जब तक आपकी नहीं होगी, आगे क्या होने जा रहा है, हम कर क्या रहे हैं, इस पे R&D अगर नहीं होगी तो कंपनी के सर्वाइवल के चांसेस बहुत कम हो जाते हैं। सेशन बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट था और मैं व्यूअर्स से कहूंगा कि बहुत ही ध्यान से इन सारी चीजों को सुने। और मंजू जी से मैं जैसा कि मीतू जी बोल चुके हैं, रिक्वेस्ट किया कि और भी सेशन हमें इस तरीके से लाने होंगे जिससे व्यूअर्स को और भी चीजों को समझने में बहुत ही आसानी हो। लेकिन आज का जो सेशन था बहुत ही अच्छा रहा। और मंजू जी आपका और मीतू जी आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि आपने इस तरीके से सेशन को कोऑर्डिनेट किया और इस तरीके से गेस्ट को आप लेके आ रही हैं अपने विक्की UPHR काउंसिल के थ्रू। तो ये सेशन जो होता है वो HR का तो है ही, लेकिन अदर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए भी बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है। थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग आपकी खबर।
Thank you.